no problem. I thought it was a big problem. What do you even, and I'm not kidding you, 2 hours later, I'm standing on a stage in the George Lucas Theater, 140 seating private theater where THX Sound was debuted. And I'm standing in the theater and there are investors in there and I'm giving the pitch. And then the investors at the end of the pitch, here's what they say. If we invest, will Eric stay and run the company? I'm on a tour. This is a very, you know when you go to the tours and they try to make it really realistic, you know? They've made this one really realistic. In the end, the investors decided not to invest, and I got talking to my friends, and I went to the owners one day and I said, look, I think you guys are in a lot more trouble than you're letting on, and here's my offer. And I offered to buy the company, and they said no. And so I flew home, and I was living in the Caribbean, in Turks and Caicos, and I flew home, and I got a phone call almost the minute I walked in my front door, and they said, would you come back? And I said, why? And they go, because we want to take your offer. And I ended up buying the studio. And the first thing we did after that was work on Avatar. And then we worked on Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers and Elysium. And then from that company, we started a really cool company that literally built life-saving technology for the US military. We literally saved lives. And that only happened because I had become comfortable with speaking. I got another phone call one day and they said, Eric, could you come and do a talk here in Vancouver, Canada? And I said, that's great. I don't think I've spoken. I left Canada when I was in my mid-20s and I'd love to come back and do a talk in Canada. And I gave this talk. And at the end of my talk, the woman says, would you come back and do another talk during the Olympics? I'm like, sure, that'd be great. I go home. She calls me a few weeks later and she goes, Eric, I need your help with this event in the Olympics. I said, sure, what do you need? She goes, well, we're setting up, it's the city of Vancouver, and we're setting up this host program where every 4 days of the Olympics, we have a different group of people coming in from different industries in the United States. So the construction industry, the medical industry, the legal industry, and so on. And she says, the trouble is that we want to get the people from the visual effects and movie production industry to come, and we can't get them to show up. We just can't get them to show up. And she goes, why won't they come? And I said, oh, well, when you're in the movie industry, you just get invited to everything. It's just the way it is. It's the sexy industry and you get invited to everything. So pretty soon you learn you have to say no to cool stuff. I'll tell you, by the way, one of the coolest ways you can accelerate your manifestation in life, one of the coolest ways that you can accelerate your ability to manifest incredible financial freedom is to become totally okay with celebrating saying no to cool stuff. FOMO can be one of the single biggest blocks to your manifestation. Fear of missing out can absolutely get in your way of creating an incredible financial future, and I'll tell you why. Think about Richard Branson, who wakes up in the morning. How many things can he do that day? Anything. He can do anything that day. With who? With anyone. If Richard Branson called any of you in this room and said, hey, do you want to come out with me, go for a little boat ride or something tomorrow? Who's going with Richard Branson? He can call anybody at any time and do anything. But what that also means is every single day, there are 9,000 incredibly cool things that he's not going to do. And he probably had to get okay with that because some of you, when you have a fear of missing out, it's painful. Who feels a little pain when they're missing out? That pain is something your subconscious mind will do anything it can to avoid. And so that includes holding you back from creating those opportunities in the first place. So now what you do when you have a fear of missing out is you don't have a fear of missing out. You have a new thing. It's the celebration of missing out. I celebrate when I miss out. Just a few weeks ago, we had our first ever WildFest conference. We'd set it up, it was done, it was booked, and then I, no kidding, got the invitation to go to Richard Branson's private game reserve in South Africa and hang out with him. And I had to say no. And you know how I said no? I said, no, how cool is it that I have to say no to that? Does this make sense? And so the problem is these people in the movie industry, they've gotten really good at that. They just say no to all the cool invitations they get. They just say no. They don't have to do it. And she goes, but how could we get them to say yes? And I said, I'll tell you, the only way I can imagine you're going to get them to say yes is if you book the last 4 days. You book the last 4 days of the Olympics and you get tickets to the closing ceremonies because it's the coolest thing. And you get tickets to the gold medal hockey game. In Canada and America, this gold medal hockey game was going to be one of the most sought after sporting events in the history of sports for North America. And the woman said to me, that is never going to happen. Never going to happen. Those tickets are the hottest tickets in the Olympics. We're never going to make it happen. And I said, I know. That's why I said, do you really want to know? That's the only way you're going to make it happen. She calls me back 2 days later and she goes, we got them. She goes, we got a block of tickets and we got them in the coolest section. Right there in the club section, we got tickets. Will you be there? What was my answer? Yes, absolutely, I will be there. I wouldn't even want to say no problem in case she only heard the first word, right? Absolutely, I will be there. And then the rest of the industry showed up because we'd made it so cool. Then I went to go do a presentation because that's why I was there. I gave a presentation, 15 minutes. Not motivation, not inspiration, just boring ass stuff about the film industry. Just stuff about how the work we did on Avatar went and how 3D technology is changing the movie industry. Nothing exciting. And then all of a sudden, this guy walks up to me, Hu Bo, Chinese guy from Shanghai. He was one of the producers of the Beijing Olympics. And the way the Olympics work is that the last city helps the next city produce. So he was there helping Vancouver produce the Olympics. So he happened to be at my talk. He walks up to me and he goes, Eric, that talk was fantastic. He says, it's the best one I've seen in the whole program. He says, I'm working on a movie right now, a big feature, a movie about the Sun Tzu's Art of War scrolls. And it's going to be like a $200 million movie. It's going to be like Avatar. And the government has already agreed to fund it, but they've told us that we need to fund a smaller movie first to prove that we can make one. He says, do you have any 3D movies that you would like funding for? Even if I didn't, I just go to the bathroom, grab a toilet roll, and write the damn thing. I mean, if somebody's offering you funding for your movie, yes, you have a movie. Just practice. I just want you to practice with me. Right now, how many of you right now do have a movie? Okay, just a few of you. No, just wait. Actually. Now, I'd say something different. I've got money for somebody who has a movie to produce. How many of you have a movie to make? Excellent answer. Excellent answer. 2 months later, he sent us $250,000 to go into development on a project we were working on. Why did that happen? Because I'd overcome my rubbish, I'd overcome the garbage, and I'd gotten comfortable with speaking. It has opened so many doors for me that I can't even begin to tell you. Who wants to know my recipe for getting on stage at A-Fest? Anybody want to know that one? I don't know, that didn't seem like there was a lot of excitement for that. I'll tell you the way it worked. Some of you have studied inceptive marketing with me. So here's what happened. I had made a decision, not only that I wanted to get on stage at A-Fest, but I'd made a decision that I wanted my products published on the Mindvalley platform. Here's the bizarre bit though. At the same time that I made that decision, Vision had made a different decision. And that was that Mindvalley no longer wanted to produce quantity. They wanted to focus completely on quality. They wanted best of breed authors. In other words, they were going from 80 authors down to 14 authors. And I had made the decision that I wanted to be one of those 14 authors. Does this sound like an easy goal? No. And so let's back up. When we talk about marketing, when we talk about influence, it doesn't work like it used to in the 80s. In the 80s, what you did for influence was you just talked about how good you were. You talked about your features and benefits. You talked about how great you were. You advertised yourself. That does not work anymore. Do we agree? It's over. And now what we have to do if we want to influence people is we have to think about them. We have to think about them. We have to think about them and talk to them about, in fact, I want to do a funny little thing. I need some parents. I need parents. I need parents that are sitting beside each other. Are you sitting beside each other? Have we played this game before? Okay, good. They are now my parents. And I am a 14-year-old child. And I would very much like to go to Disney World. Now, in the traditional world of children, how am I going to convince mom and dad that I get to go to Disney World? How am I going to do it? Help me out, coach me on the traditional world. How would I do it? I'm going to go tell them what I want, right? I really, really want to go to Disneyland. Say no. No. Now what do I try now? Begging, please. I'll clean my room, bribery. Is it true? Right? And then, guilt. But all the cool parents are sending their kids. Will kids do this stuff? Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you something. You might think the kids do this stuff. I've seen some of your websites. You're doing this. You're just talking about you on the website. I want you to buy my product. Let me tell you how great my product is. You're not giving them value. So if I think of it differently, wait a minute. Who's my ideal target market? My parents. Aren't they? All right. So if I want to influence them, I need to learn everything I can about them. What are my parents worried about? What are they thinking about? They're thinking about me. They're thinking about, am I safe? They want to make sure I don't get somebody pregnant, that I don't have the police bring me home. They're thinking that I want to get a good education. Is this all true? All right, now, my parents are thinking about that stuff. Got it. Hey, mom, dad, are you having good breakfast? I just wanted you to know I've been thinking a lot lately about my university education and, university entrance requirements. I've been thinking a lot about that. Do I have their attention? Yeah, one of them is choking now from, like, what? What? And it turns out, Mom and Dad, that university, the grades thing, you guys were right. That's really important. You got to have, I'm going to have to step up on that area because you got to have those grades. You know what else is fascinating, though, is that it turns out universities aren't interested just in robotic grades. They're interested in interesting kids. They're interested in innovation, activity, involvement, creativity. And so I'm doing everything I can to learn about that because there have been some incredible people out there. Do you guys know who Nikola Tesla is? And of course, Thomas Edison, and then you've got George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Walt Disney and Elon Musk and Richard Branson. I mean, these people are so creative and I'm so excited about them. So right now, I'm doing like a project. I'm doing all the research I can on Walt Disney. You know that when he was broke and he was just making cartoons, and his story is fascinating. So if you have any books or blogs or articles or videos or anything at all about Walt Disney, any way that you can help me learn more about Walt Disney, you just let me know. Whose idea is it going to be? It's going to be their idea. It's going to be their idea. And I think a lot about this because most of us these days are so uncomfortable with communicating that we don't have time to think about our communication before we communicate. Isn't it true? I am a big fan of having really clear strategic objectives before I communicate. Before I walk on stage, I have a list of strategic objectives. One of them is always to have fun. It's always like that for me. I won't go on stage if it isn't fun, ever since Poland. By the way, in Poland, did I end up having fun? Yeah, because it was one of my strategic objectives. And so one of the problems is that if you're nervous and you're freaked out and you're afraid, it's hard to think strategically because most people, many people in this room even, if they were told, hey, you have to give a presentation in front of hundreds of people, your biggest strategic objective is survival. Isn't it true? It's just to get through it. It's just to get to the other side. In fact, some of you will come up and you'll do a presentation and you'll do really well. You'll make people laugh. You'll give some good ideas. You'll walk off the stage and you'll have instant stage amnesia. You'll forget everything you said. Who's had that experience? That's adrenaline and cortisol. When you walk up on stage with adrenaline and cortisol, you mess it up. And you don't give yourself a chance to learn. So I'm going to give you a clue, one of the biggest clues you can have in starting to get really comfortable with being on the stage. Never ever tell the audience that you're nervous. Never ever show them with your body that you're nervous. Never let them hear in your voice that you're nervous. Don't do it. How many of you have gone out to do a talk, you've been a little nervous, you've really kicked butt, like you've actually done really well. Once you got into it, you made them laugh, you started to feel pretty good, and then you got off the stage and it was good. And then people come up to you and told you how good it was, and yet somehow you were still nervous the next time. Who's had that experience? The reason you had that experience is that you came off the stage and you walked around and people came up to you and they told you what a great job you did. And you didn't believe them. You didn't believe them because you showed them that you were nervous. And so because you showed them that you were nervous, you believe that their praise of you, that their warm words for you are platitudes and lies. What you have to do is you have to recognize that if you tell them you're nervous, the reason you're doing it, the reason that you're saying, oh gosh, I'm a little nervous today, is you're fishing. That's why you're doing it. You're fishing because you're afraid you might not do that well. You want to set their expectations lower, and that way they're going to give you better feedback. But the problem is the feedback will only feel good. It's like a drug. That feedback is like snorting a line of cocaine. It'll feel good for a minute and it'll mess up your life. Please never let them see you nervous. I had this woman, Jessica. She came to one of my very first ever speaking academies. She came to the academy, and before she came, by the way, she was so scared that even signing up, her hands were shaking. She was so terrified to be there. And then she did the program and became incredibly comfortable and super proficient at speaking. And so sometime later, I used to offer this service where people could send me videos and I would do a video breakdown of their talk for them. And so I did that for her. She sent me one of her videos and I'm watching the video and she rocked it. She did this incredible talk on mindfulness. Beautiful talk, beautifully delivered. And she came to the very end of the talk and then she did something that told the audience how hard it was for her, how nervous she was. It was subtle. It was super subtle. I don't know if I'm going to show it to you. You might not even see it. It was so subtle. But it kind of went like this. She finished her talk. She, no kidding, got a standing ovation. And at the end of the standing ovation, just see if you can see it. It was a little, like, in poker you have the tell. When you're trying to bluff, you have the tell. And so she just gave it away a little bit. Here it was. Everybody's clapping and she goes like this. Did you see it? I couldn't believe it. I'm watching the video going, no, you did this perfect talk. And if she just stood there and accepted the applause, then when the people came up and told her how much ass she kicked, how well she did, she would have believed them. But just that one stupid little thing, she won't believe any of them. No. You cannot show them you're nervous. If you walk on stage acting, at least, if you're not, acting confident, telling them you're confident and not communicating your fear, you will believe the feedback you get and you will feel slightly better for the next talk. And then you'll do your next talk and you will believe the feedback you get and you will feel slightly better by the next talk. 5 talks later, you will not be nervous anymore. You will let it go. Does this sound sensible to you? I went to speak at my very first A-Fest event, coming back to my strategy on how to get there. The ideal target market in my case was who? Vishen. And so I ended up at a conference where Vishen was. And what I know about Vishen, because I'd done a little bit of research, is I knew a few things about him. One is that he has a very selective way of putting his attention on things. He has a very high value system of what he's going. He does not waste his attention. Do you understand? So if he goes to a conference, he's very clear about which speakers he already wants to see. He knows that. And the rest of the time he's working, he's on his device, he's making things happen. He didn't know me, so was he going to come and see my talk? No. And so I'm sitting on a bus going on some tour, and I notice I've got Vishen nearby, and I go, Vishen, I want to do a little more market research. Sometimes the best place to do your market research is with your market. And so I go, Vishen, I want to ask you some questions. I'm curious. What are you interested in these days? And he goes, oh, I'm super interested in biohacking. And I go, that's amazing. That's what I'm speaking about tomorrow. Now. Know your ideal target market and then give them what they want. As it turned out, I was talking about evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology, which in my opinion is the foundation of biohacking. I wasn't going to say that in my talk, but now I thought maybe I should address it. And the other thing I knew about Vishen is that he really values solid educators. Have you guys noticed the quality of the people he brings for you to learn from? He really values solid educators. And one of the ways he measures them is, can they hold an audience's attention? Can they give information in a way that the audience is actually going to learn and actually going to change? And so I knew that if I could get him to come in the room, that I needed to deliver like that. And so there he was in the room. And so I gave the talk that he needed to see. He walked up to me immediately and he goes, Eric, you got to come speak at A-Fest. Mission accomplished. Step 1 of mission accomplished. By the way, I wasn't doing a lot of speaking back then, and I said, what month is it in? And he told me the month. And I said, yes, because I didn't have anything in my calendar. I was like, yeah, okay, I'd do it. And then another guy, because I had done so well, walked up to me, Colin, and he goes, Eric, could you speak at our conference in Vancouver? And I'm like, what month is it? Same month. I'm like, yeah, what are the odds that, yeah, I'll be there. Same weekend. One event's in Vancouver, Canada, and the other one's in Mykonos, Greece. So, close. And so I go off to Vancouver, and I do my talk, and I get off stage, and I normally would like to stay and, autographs and take selfies and all that kind of stuff that people want to do, but I could not. I literally went from the stage to the limousine, to the airport, to the 3 flights, to Mykonos. And here's the funny thing I didn't know, is that Mindvalley had arranged a hotel room for me. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything. I just went there myself, and I had already booked my own hotel room. The problem is when I didn't check into my hotel room, they're like, where the hell is Eric? And so the next morning I woke up in my hotel room and I walked over to the conference center, and I knew I had to be on stage in about an hour, and I went there to go and look at the stage and do all my stuff. And Mia, some of you will be familiar with Mia. Who is Mia fantastic and amazing? Absolutely she is. And she and I had never really met before. Well, that's not true. About 2 weeks earlier we had met on Skype. She goes, Eric, the A-Fest schedule was full before Vishen invited you. She goes, what are you planning to speak about? And I go, well, I imagine Vishen wants me to talk about WildFit, I think. And she goes, well, we already have Dave Asprey, we've got JJ Virgin, we've got Mark Hyman. We do not need another diet talk. You cannot talk about diet. And I'm like, I have no idea what to do now. And so, what did I say to her, by the way, when she said this to me? No problem. And then I got there, and I got a hold of her on FaceTime. And she goes, oh my God, Eric, oh my God, you didn't check into the hotel, and we didn't know where you were, and we're freaking out. And I said, Mia, everything's fine. It's no problem, I'm here. And then I walked out, and she immediately calmed down. She came out and met me in the lobby, and she said that it was just so amazing because so many times speakers are frenetic and nervous before they walk on the stage. Is it true? And in my case, I was like, I was just so laid back. She's like, you're on stage soon, right? And I go, yeah. And she goes, don't you have to do that nervous thing that people do? I go, no. She goes, oh, do you do it like right before you go on stage then? I go, no, I just don't do that. I don't like that. I don't enjoy it. So I don't do that. We don't go there. And she's like, okay. And so then I walked out on stage and I did a talk. And that night, we were all at dinner. I was out at dinner, and Vishen was there, Christina was there, a bunch of the speakers were there. And Vishen walks up to me, and he says, the tribe so enjoyed your talk. Would you do another one for us? Now, I need to back up for a moment. I don't do 20-minute talks. I just don't. I just don't do that. I just don't do that. Do you know why I don't do it? If you would like me to come and speak in your company, and you want me to speak for, 8 hours, do you know how much time I have to prepare for that? I don't. I just show up and I'll speak for the 8 hours. I'll do a little preparation on what your company wants, but I don't have to prepare for a talk like that. If you want me to come on stage and speak for 3 hours, I'll prep for half an hour or to an hour max. But if you want me to talk for 20 minutes, I need a month. Because I have to choose the words so carefully. I have to choose the rhythm so carefully. I don't have leeway. So people have come and asked me, oh, come and do a TED Talk, come and do it. Nope. 18 minutes. No, I won't do that. I just won't do it. But in this case, remember, I had a strategic objective to get published on Mindvalley. And so in order for me to get published on Mindvalley, I knew step one was get myself on the AFES stage. And when Vishen said, come and speak, I didn't even ask how long it was. I found out it was 20 minutes. And I'm like, no problem. And so I did my first talk in 20 minutes. First time I ever spoke for 20 minutes. And Vishen comes up to me afterward at dinner. And he says, Eric, the tribe loved your talk so much. Would you do another one tomorrow? For 20 minutes. Sure, I have a month between now and tomorrow to prepare. And then I said to him, what would you like the talk to be about? Because he knows me a little at this point. He knows about my interest in business and entrepreneurship. He knows that I'm interested in health and nutrition. He knows that I'm interested in evolutionary biology. I'm a curious guy. And what's interesting is I have this friend, David Wood, and when you go out to a meal in a restaurant with him, this is so cool, he won't order. The waiter comes over, and the waiter says, what would you like? And he goes, anything. You decide. Surprise me. How brave is that in America? That could be lethal, really. But the fact is, he does it. He goes, bring me anything. And you know what's really amazing is if the restaurant's not too full, almost every time I've been out with him, they've brought him something that wasn't on the menu. Because the chef is bored silly with cooking the same crap. Chefs did not go into being chefs to cook the same stuff every day. They're creative people. And so when he says, I'll take anything, the chef is back there going, cooking the same thing all the time. And the guy says, hey, we got a joker back here. He says he wants you to make anything for him. Pick something off the menu. And the guy goes, forget the menu. I get to be creative. And he does something creative. And then they send the creative dish out. And then we're sitting there and David gets his creative meal, which somehow looks better, smells better, tastes better than everything on the menu every time. And then you know what? Almost every time the chef comes out and greets us at the table in his hat, the whole deal. He says, I want to know how the meal was. Is that a rich experience? It really is. And I think our whole job in our lives is really to have rich experiences. And I love the way he did that. And so when Vishen, I said to Vishen, what would you like me to speak about? Vishen says this to me, I kid you not. And I want you to understand, Mindvalley controls things tightly to make sure they're delivering every minute is accounted for. First of all, I don't know where he found an extra 20 minutes for me. You never have an extra 20 minutes at a conference, ever. Because